The farmer boy who invented Ford. Sometimes you need to leave your comfort zone to achieve more extraordinary things. Leaving home at a young age led Henry Ford to a path of greatness, and today his automobile company still makes giant strides. In today's video, we will reveal everything you need to know about the farmer boy who invented Ford. So watch this video till the end to find out, and do not forget to like this video. Henry Ford was born on July 30, 1863 in Dearborn, Michigan. Ford's father was a farmer and owned a large farm where the family lived and worked. Being the oldest son, Ford was expected to take over from his father. Meanwhile, Ford hated farming and had no intention of taking over. The only thing he did was help out on the farm, just like every family member. Even at that, helping out on the farm wasn't so fascinating for Ford. And the reason he did was that he shared a strong bond with his mother, whom he enjoyed working with on the farm. You will not believe what you will see next. Ford never made it past 8th grade because he disliked school as a child. He would rather learn things on his own terms than stay in a regularized system. So, rather than attend high school, he took a bookkeeping course at a commercial school. At the same time, he picked interest in mechanics. He would dismantle and reassemble any machinery he set his hands on. At the age of 12, his father gifted him a pocket watch, which he put apart and then reassembled. After getting the hang of how the watch worked, he proceeded to repair watches. Shortly after, Ford gained popularity as a watch repairman among his friends and neighbors. Meanwhile, Ford's love for mechanics intensified after he came across a steam engine while on a school trip. He was fascinated by the encounter, and his love for machinery went further a notch. And by the time he was 15, he had built his first steam engine. At this point, his father expected him to take charge of the farm, but given his disinterest in farming, Ford struggled with taking over. The only reason he managed to work on the farm was because of his mother, who is now dead. The death of his mother made him despise farm work even more. So rather than stay back on the farm, he packed his bag and moved out of the house in 1879. While on his itinerary, he made it to Detroit, which was fast becoming an industrial center at the time. Lucky for him, he got a job at a streetcar manufacturing company called Michigan Car Company. However, his time in the company was short-lived, as he was sacked barely a week after he was employed. Subsequently, he moved to James F. Flower and Brothers, where he worked as an apprentice. Meanwhile, his weekly wage of $2.60 was too small for him to get by. Therefore, to make ends meet, he got a night job where he looked after a shop as a jeweler, cleaning and repairing watches. While he worked 2 jobs, Ford took out time to study and nurture his interest in mechanics. In 1882, he returned to Dearborn, where he took up farm work. His dislike for farming didn't wane, so he spent most of his time operating farm machines, rather than partaking in major farm work. One of the machines he operated was his father's steam engine. At the time, many farmers were acquiring steam engines, and seeing that Ford was so good with the machine, his neighbor hired him to help operate his steam engine. Shortly after, Ford's skill with the machines was noticed by the district representative of the Westinghouse Engine Company, and the company hired Ford to service their steam engines. In 1885, Ford met a lady called Clara Jane Bryant, whom he married a year later. Around 1889, Ford came across a magazine on gas engines. Through the magazine, he discovered a certain Nicholas Otto produced the engines. The gas engine spellbound Ford because it was far more efficient than steam engines. Studying the gas engine was challenging for Ford because it was powered by electricity. For that reason, Ford decided to learn more about gas engines, so he started work at Edison Illuminating Company. His job was to fix the engine whenever it was faulty, and since the engine doesn't break down all the time, he had enough time to research electricity and how it works. This is not the whole story. It is even going to get crazier. Keep watching. Later that year, Ford created his first gas engine, and on June 4, 1896, Ford completed his experimental gas-powered car, which he called the quadricycle. Although the experiment was successful, the most prominent issue is that the car had no cooling system, which made it susceptible to overheating. Having noticed the shortfalls, Ford made some adjustments and included a cooling system, and later sold the car for $200. Again, by July 1899, Ford completed his second vehicle. William Murphy, a businessman, proposed collaborating with Ford after he took him on a test drive in his new invention. Ford agreed to William's proposal, and on August 5, 1899, they established a company they named the Detroit Automobile. Rather unfortunately, the company packed up shortly afterward due to some reasons. One of the reasons was a conflict of interest between Ford and the stakeholders, who wanted Ford to make passenger cars against his wish to improve his designs. Secondly, production was frequently stalled because different companies produced the car parts, slowing production. For that reason, he was fired from his position. Meanwhile, Ford was unfazed by the challenges and decided to begin again. But this time, he was focused more on racing cars due to their growing popularity. A few years later, Ford's racing car defeated other notable racing car brands, putting him in an enviable position. Apparently, the victory with the racing car was the push he needed for investors to back him after failing at his first company. Subsequently, Ford got financial backing from investors, which birthed a new company called Ford Motor Company, where Ford was the chief engineer. Again, there was a clash of interests between Ford and the investors. The reason for the clash was the investors wanted passenger cars, but Ford kept reeling out race cars. This made the company hire another engineer, Henry Martin Leland. This infuriated Ford, and he resigned from the company. In 1902, Ford, alongside Tom Cooper, produced the Ford 999, and by 1904, the car gained popularity due to its unbeatable speed. The new success again put him in an enviable position. With financial support from Alexander Young Malcolmson, a coal seller, and other investors, a new company was established. Wait a minute, this is not everything. Later in the video, we will show you how Henry Ford handled his new company. This time, Ford was more bullish and vouched to sustain the company, so he hired the brightest talents. Ford produced another car he called the Model A, followed by the Model N. Around this time, Henry discovered vanadium steel, which was about 3 times stronger than the previous steel he used. Moving forward, Henry used vanadium steel to make the Model T, a car that would later become one of the most successful cars in human history. 15,000 orders were made following the release of Model T, with each costing $850. Following the success of Model T, Ford built a new plant in Michigan, giving the workers enough room to work and increasing the production of Model T. Meanwhile, his workers got bored from producing the same model over and over again, leading to the resignation of some of the workers. To combat this, Ford increased the wage of his workers to $5 per day. Finally, Ford gained the company's autonomy after buying out other investors. However, Ford kept producing the Model T, paying no mind to the growing change in the automobile industry. And by the end of the 1920s, Ford's company declined so much that he had to lay off his workers. Upon seeing the decline in sales, he closed down Model T's assembly line to produce a new model called Model A. Despite the new feat, things were hard, and the Great Depression didn't make it any better. During this trying time, he lost his only son Edsel to stomach cancer. After working for 2 more years after Edsel's death, Ford transferred control to his grandson, Henry II, and retired to his estate, where he died from a cerebral hemorrhage on April 7, 1947. Despite encountering several trying phases, Ford Motor Company is still one of the leading car companies in the world. Do not forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel for similar videos.